بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ومولانا محمد وآله وأصحابه وأزواجه وذريته أجمعين. اللهم أرنا الحق حقا وارزقنا اتباعه وأرنا الباطل باطلا وارزقنا اجتنابه. اللهم أرنا حقائق الأشياء كما هي ربنا زدنا علما وعملا وإخلاصا. اللهم انصر أولياءك في غزة وفي فلسطين كلها في كل مكان. اللهم انصرهم على عدوك وضوهم إنك على كل شيء قدير. آمين. So we continue our reading of Certainty and Change in Capitalist Order, this short article. And last time we had stopped here. So we are going to start from rapid digitalization has led to the macro systematic dominance of small handful of tech giants. So rapid digitalization has led to the macro/systematic dominance of small handful of tech giants, conglomerates who appropriate surplus through fictitiously enhanced rents and monopolies, rather than through innovation. We are in the era of intellectual monopoly capitalism. Let's dwell a bit on this. So we'll start with digitalization. What is, I guess, digitalization is easy concept to understand. Its literal meaning is adaptation of a system, etc., to be operated with the use of computers and the internet. So that is digitalization, to adapt the system so that it can be operated with the use of computer and internet. So that's digitalization in simple terms. So digitalization, rapid digitalization, so it's not just a digitalization but rapid digitalization since 1996 onward has led to the macro systematic at the level of capitalism. Systematic level. Dominance of small handful of tech giants. And their handful, will come to that. That's what leads to monopolies. And that's the natural tendency in capitalism. But digitalization has and financialization has multiplied that natural tendency in its actual results. Why monopolies are natural tendencies? Which means the concentration of capital and profits within few big companies. Why that's a natural tendency in capitalism? So tendency towards monopolization is inherent in capitalism. It's not a new thing. Why is that? Because the purpose of capitalism is accumulation for the sake of and accumulation requires concentration, huge concentration of capital. So when capital concentrates, it can multiply quickly and in large quantities. So in order to accumulate more. But successful accumulation leads to further concentration. So if concentration is of capital is required for accumulation, and successful accumulation means further concentration, and so on. So successful accumulation leads to concentration of capital, and one stage of successful concentration leads to further concentration and further accumulation, and so on. And concentration is another way of saying that capital as a result tend to concentrate. I'm just trying to think of another word. In fewer and fewer companies. So that results in the emergence of few large companies in every sector. And really big, it's eventually lead to 2 or 3 large companies, and and they keep merging, etc. Which means that these big companies have capital. Because they're big, capital is concentrated in their hands. They become even bigger. That means that those companies because in capitalism, accumulation capital and money, for example, is just another coin of power. So when they become big, they have lots of concentration of capital in their hands, then they have more power than others. So they can become so big that they are more powerful than states. And with financialization, you can concentrate more because you don't have to go through, the problems you have with a concentration of actual capital. They can be just dots in the memory of computers, for example. So this leads to growth of large companies, large giants. And that has happened in the era of digitalization as well. So you have Amazon, you have Google, you have Apple, you have Facebook, all these big companies. And there are Chinese companies as well. So they're huge. Capital is concentrated in their hands, so they are powerful as well. They have political power as well. So they control legislation through, the means which are well known, and they make sure that the profits are high, the rents are high, etc. And now monopolization is always oligopolistic in capitalism because you still need competition. But that competition is between a few players, not a lot of, because they are huge firms, huge companies and giants, and they compete with 2, 3, 4 giants, and they compete with each other, compete, include, etc. Okay, so rapid digitalization has led to the macro systematic dominance of small handful of tech giants, conglomerates who appropriate surplus through fictitiously enhanced rents and monopolies, rather than through innovation. Why? Because obviously it's relative, but like so the growth is through monopoly. So if you are monopoly, you are powerful, so you can, and there are a few monopolies, so you can charge higher prices because there's competition, but there's not too much competition. Yeah. And on prices they can collude, so the competition is in other things. And you can charge rents in the era of digitalization, for example, for use of email or use of cloud services. And then that very use leads to more data and more information and more relative innovation in those areas, so they can charge more and more. And you don't own office suite or anything. You just pay rent as well, and also for further, and they're always, with few modifications, that you are always getting new versions, and those new versions are primarily based on the information collected through the users, very users who are paying rent to use those things. And so there's no incentive for any earth-changing innovations, epoch-making innovations like you had. Internet was, invented by American Defense Department after World War II or before. Or in 19th century, there were innovations. You had cars, you have television, you have new things, you have aeroplanes. But those sort of innovations are, there are innovations, but those are just minor innovations, like you have new versions of phones, etc., based on technologies which have been around since the Second World War at least. So the incentive for innovation is less, because innovation requires long-term investment, which pays after years of research and study, etc. So it's normally done by governments, but governments don't do anymore because the big tech companies have political power because they're so big, and they don't want those investment because those investment will decrease their profits, and they would have to pay tax, etc., and increase when government invests, then the government's power vis-a-vis the companies increase as well. So they don't want to do that, etc., etc. So that's what is happening. That's what is being described here, just in simple terms, if not in simplistic. So rapid digitalization has led to the macro systemic dominance of a small handful of tech giants, conglomerates, who appropriate surplus through fictitiously enhanced rents and monopolies rather than through innovation. We are in the era of intellectual monopoly capitalism. and they have monopoly on those things which they invent, like uh, Office or Google or technologies, which are indirectly funded by people and governments, but they own them. You just pay rent for everything. And the same is that, and this has digitalized. This digitalization has happened through financialization, and financialization and digitalization has strengthened each other. Now these companies are financial companies as well as they financialization is also like financial markets, banks, capital market. They are also digitalized. So in that sense, they are also subservient to or owned by these big digital giants. And then because they are so big, then they can actually own real economy as well, or affect it anyway, because that real economy is also using those digital platforms, etc. So that's the crux of what is being said here. But we'll continue on this discussion further. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد ان لا اله الا انت نستغفرك ونتوب اليك وصلي وسلم على سيدنا محمد وعلى اله وصحبه وازواجه وذريته برحمتك يا